After 3 days of testing in Bahrain, we've got new liveries, new car concepts, and the same old result for Red Bull. Welcome to Grid Talk. Today we are here to preview and discuss the opening round of the 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix. My name is Owain, and joining me today we have Grid Talk and Formula Talk co-host Tom Downey.
Hello, sir. How are you?
And an inflection that doesn't need to be there. Before we get into the episode, we must thank our sponsor for this episode, BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favourite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts. Now, Tom, we're going to go, I think, back to front. Not necessarily in terms of speed, because we can't really read too much into that. As we always say, we're testing. That it's entirely possible that they were running with 110 kilos of fuel in the car or more, and obviously there's the various sort of sensor paraphernalia, which according to various sources can be up to sort of 20 kilos, as this is just testing, and it's testing not just for Bahrain. This isn't an extended practice session for the teams. This is to understand their cars going for every single circuit we're going to, and all of the different weather conditions that we'll be running in the dry at least. And what I've gathered so far is that Alpine, having lost Alpine, who was, expected to be there basically until he retired, amongst other things, has just seemed to have taken a walk backwards. I don't know how much of testing you actually saw, but they don't look quite right. They haven't done that much in terms of kilometers of testing. They are 8th out of 10 teams for the amount of laps that they've run. It just doesn't look promising, does it?
No. And for a team that walked into sports with his arms sort of held out like he was some buff bodybuilder, saying, 5 years we're going to be winning this and that. No, hun, you've won one race, and that was 3 seasons ago. Alpine, they've just, something like fundamentally needs to change, because even the livery, was like a bad omen for that team, because we all looked at it and went, and then the car's gone out on track, and it just looks a bit cumbersome, a bit slow, and just, like you said, obviously we don't know about testing programs, but yeah, so we don't know. They could have been like practicing for Monaco for 3 days straight and running like max downforce or something with, like 100 kilos of fuel or whatever. But it's the whole team it seems so dysfunctional at the moment, and they've got 2 decent drivers, both of whom won in junior formulas. Obviously Gasly won GP2, Ocon won GP3 the year Gasly won GP2. I'm pretty sure they were both 2016. And it's just a bit, it's hard to even find the words for them. You mentioned obviously Alpine has gone. They gave Otmar the boot last year as well, and he seems to turned into an Instagram influencer, and it's just.
Wait, hold on, has he?
Honestly, right, Otmar's Instagram post. I don't follow Instagram that much these days, but he looks like someone just let their dad loose on Instagram.
Does he pretend to go on a private jet that he doesn't own?
Oh no. He's not a day trader or whatever they're called. No. But no, he's no. But it's just the whole sort of like Renault Sport Alpine, whatever they're called these days, outfit. If I refer to them as Renault, it's not me being difficult. It's just I'm so used to calling them Renault. That sometimes inadvertently call them that. I hate your top, by the way. For benefit of audio listeners, Owen's wearing an England rugby shirt, which is disgusting.
But for the benefit of for those of you who don't know where this is being recorded, it's 25 minutes before the next rugby game in the Six Nations.
Yeah.
Just to date it.
Yeah, let's just be thankful that it's not before the England-Wales game. I think it's in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, no, jokes aside, Alpine, they're just in an odd place, and I've not got much confidence in them for this season. I think they're going to need a miracle or something to sort of did a good result. But mind you, last year in Bahrain, they had an absolute stinker at the start of the season. Because Ocon was doing was getting all the penalties, and Gasly had a shoddy qualifying and then had mechanical issues, retired. So who knows? They might have a slow start to the season. But I'm just not holding out much hope for Alpine, to be honest.
It just doesn't look good, does it? It's like
it doesn't, mate.
Okay, I know this is the weirdest way you have to look. Not the weirdest, but the way you have to look at it a lot of the time is you just have to kind of go, does it look right? And the question is, and the answer is no. I think that, you know what? I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that the most successful thing about Alpine's running was that they didn't blow up at any point. But we've seen that with all the cars. And to be quite honest, Alpine obviously had a number of issues last year. I think to be quite honest, a lot of it is going to be due to the fact that the teams this year they will have developed their engines reliability wise for a proposed change to go down to two power units for the entire year.
They're not going to get past Saudi.
No, you don't know that. They might make it, but no, I reckon it's two power units for each year. Obviously, two of every component you can use on a rotating basis, depending on how you sort of set it up and configure it with your pool of parts. But that hasn't happened, so they haven't dropped it down to two. It's now it's still three, but the teams will have worked on two. So you could get an enterprising team who decides to use the more power modes. But no one seems to have done that. Haas, for example, has completed the most running of testing at 441 laps. Is that a sign of good things to come? I mean, obviously they've just lost their team principal. Aya Komatsu, no relation to the Williams sponsor, has not had particularly long in the job. So you can't pin anything on this. Honestly, just bulletproof reliability. But I just can't. Can you? Is there something I'm missing here, mate? Because I'm looking at the Haas and just going, this is poor.
What? Yeah, mate. The issue, right, with the Haas is, as we saw last year, it was all right in body specs, certainly in Hülkenberg's hands. I mean, Magnussen, questionable to say the least. And I think Hulk has proved that he is a better driver than certainly people like myself give him credit for. But in race pace, the car was so bad on his tyres, especially his rear tyres. We saw it just dropping like a stone through the order, and because quite often qualified, in the top 10, he put it on, I think, the second row in Canada, and I saw maybe the third row or something, and we saw this with him in 2022, and it's just that I've read somewhere that they have apparently sacrificed testing, or certainly given a large part of testing to just understand that how their car is so heavy on its tires. Because there must be a fundamental setup issue. The car must not be set up correctly at the rear, and if Haas can't get that under control, I think they'll be all right. I think they'll have an all right season. But I just worry that they're going to be spending this season just at least understanding that. I think Haas definitely needed a change because Gunther has done a lot of good things in F1. He's been at that team since 2016, and they had sort of slowly, progressively gone backwards. They peaked they came in with a sort of bit of a bit of fanfare in 2016. They peaked in 2018. Then 2019 was sort of like and then 2020 was 2021, the less said the better. 2022 was actually we might be okay. Then 2023 was, no, we're not. And 2024 is going to be mummy help. So, that's my expert analysis on Haas's ride in F1 so far.
I was going to say something a lot meaner, which is that I think that Haas's entire value is due to the fact that it has an F1 entry.
Yeah, and they came in saying, we're the American F1 team. They're like, yeah, but you've got a base in Maranello, which fair enough for the engine stuff, because obviously they're Ferrari affiliated. But they've then got a base in Banbury and Oxfordshire, then they've got a base in Canapolis. And it's just like, it's so spread out, that operation. You either need to commit to being a US team like Andretti, who the cheek of us to say I would ruin the competition of the sport. Mate, who are you competing with? Competing with yourselves and your own tyres. Give it a rest. So it's just, the Haas, I just don't know. I mean, I'd like to see them sort of like get back up there, because I certainly did quite like Haas, but they've got to a point now where it's sort of just like, especially on these shows, we just go, oh yeah, they qualified and then they fell down the order like a stone and finished P16 and P18. That's what we seem to do.
To be honest with you, I think that's the biggest thing as well, is that, looking forward to the race weekend, I looking at their race, just borrowing off the analysis done by the official F1 website on this, and they are poorest in race simulation pace, and they are poorest in qualifying simulation pace. So they're going to start last, and you can't. And luckily, they're not going to drop down the order, but that's only because they're going to be, I guess, being lapped just immediately. I mean, obviously, it's going to throw up some big questions, and obviously we were doing this on the track that is hardest on tyre wear, but
yeah,
it feels so poor.
It does, doesn't it?
It's just not. I don't know.
It just feels, just feels off. But Haas are going to Haas, and we'll see what comes about in. Is it next week?
It is next week. In fact, it will be like today.
Yeah, it will be like this exact time next week. We'll probably be watching Max Verstappen on the top step.
Yeah, we'll be 8. Well, I think we're. Hold on, I will just check, but I think we'll be 18 laps into the Grand Prix right now.
Yeah, well, there's no Grosjean on to. In fact, I'm not even going to say that.
Yeah, don't say that, Tom.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah. That's obviously pending no safety as of whatever, but yes.
Okay, it's weird because it's going to be so soon. Oh no, sorry. Actually, you're right. We will be watching Max Verstappen on the podium. The race starts at 3.
Yeah, it'll be. Yeah. But by this point he'll have had a couple of bickers with GP, sorry, and then he'll be on his way to his however many race, and he'll be extending his own streak of continuous race victories.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I don't really want to think about it, to be honest, because they just look a step ahead. They look like they're having a 5-star time, and similarly, if you could take just 5 minutes, if you're enjoying this podcast, we'd love it if you could take 5 to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It's kind of ominous, isn't it, how far ahead Red Bull seem to be. We saw them completely update the concept or change it quite significantly. They seem to have come up with some really innovative solutions, borrowing from up and down the grid, borrowing from Mercedes, the sort of taking what they can and fully leveraging the fact that they've got the power unit in-house now. And obviously they're not building themselves. I think they're still getting up and running, but clearly there seems to be a lot more of integration between the chassis and the power unit. And it just looks. Can you see? I mean, I'll put it this way: can you see anything else but a Red Bull 1-2 on top of the podium?
I think we could see. I think we'll definitely see a Red Bull 1. Obviously there are question marks over. Perez is. Not question marks over his ability, but if you look at how his season unravelled last season, we could put question marks over that. The Red Bull is looking imperious, and whether it's going to be a 1-2 or I think personally, I think barring any mechanical issues, I think Max is going to win. Everything that we've seen in testing, like we said, we don't know fuel load, all the rest of it. Apparently, Mercedes have been sandbagging a bit from what I've heard. I don't know.
We claimed that the last 2 years. Quite honestly, the only thing that's changed there is the fact that the car doesn't look as. It looks sorted.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a bad way to do it, but it doesn't look as.
But they've not tried to go with the zero side pods concept for a third year in a row, because it had some sort of like promise in 2022. Then 2023, it was just wasn't great, and they've just they've kind of just abandoned it.
I think they thought they'd taken a step at 2022. Clearly, 2023 was. God, and it wasn't even a trial by fire. It was, all the way through every single appeals court of fire.
It was,
and apparently, sort of really, I think, took the wind out of them as Mercedes is being pilfered left and right for other teams' technical departments, as is wont to happen, particularly in a cost cap era. And I thought, I think they thought, they've really had to come and sort of just sort of redo the car from the ground up.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we're talking about like using a bit Red Bull 1-2. I think if the pace we've seen in testing is to be believed, we could have one of the McLarens up there. Either one of them. They're obviously both these supreme drivers. Those two. We could have either one of the McLarens, either one of the Mercs. Yeah, we could potentially have Alonso out there. Stroll, not so much. I don't think. Let's be realistic. But Aston Martin definitely sort of seemed to have taken their car as an evolution of last year's car and sort of continued with that kind of pace. They didn't. We're not talking about them in the same light we were talking about them last year, but that's because the performance gains they made between 2022 and 2023 were enormous. So there are obviously different sort of ways of looking at it. They're almost like expected by this point to sort of have that kind of pace, given the precedent they set from last year. Mercedes. I'm not being a Red Bull fan whenever I say this, but I do genuinely want to see Mercedes back towards the front, and I want to see McLaren at the front. I don't even really care who it is at the front. I just want to see a title scrap, and even if it's like even if it's just a sort of occasion where we have like some race weekends in the year when Red Bull aren't on the pace. Because look at Singapore from last year when I said they weren't on the pace. They couldn't get the setup right at all. Even if we take like 2019, an absolute banger of a season. With lots of different race winners. Mercedes weren't sort of perfect aside from one race weekend that we had with Red Bull last year. And if we get that, it will be an exciting season because that was part of the issue we had last year. So if the sort of like, I don't like to use the phrase best of the rest, but we need to be realistic and say that, Red Bull are going to be at the top. So if we have Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, Ferrari, you got to put in there. I'd like to put Alpine in there, but I honestly don't think they will, given what we talked about earlier. So if you look at sort of like P2 to P5 in the constructors, that could change almost on a sort of like weekend by weekend basis. I mean, heck, with a sprint weekend, it could change between a Saturday and a Sunday. So there is the potential there for it to make it a really exciting, not only Grand Prix weekend, but what we've seen in testing, potentially make it a really exciting season.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think you're right. My hope is that Red Bull have taken this step, but kind of after a particularly dominant. You see it go in waves, don't you? Really, you sort of. I mean, Red Bull before and Ferrari before them had. It's only really Mercedes that's managed to have dominance and then sort of kind of a consistent level of dominance over the year, over each year of their dynasty sort of thing. Whereas Red Bull, you had to, sort of 2010, they didn't have complete dominance. 2011 blew everyone apart. Obviously, 2012 goes to the last race, and then 2013 doesn't do that. I'm my thinking is that maybe Red Bull have sort of not so much peaked, but maybe for where they are now, found the limit of the car concept. Although I could be completely wrong. We could be in a completely new ball game. But I think, as you say, I think Red Bull. I think Aston maybe are slightly further back. McLaren look happy with their car. Mercedes, as you say, looks sorted. They all. I think it's actually quite exciting in some ways because we've got a number of teams who are at the point where they look like they can at least start from a solid starting point and develop their way towards the front. One of those teams who I think has made, actually, we've been talking about a lot about teams going backwards, apart from Red Bull and obviously Merc, Aston and McLaren, but that was the top half of the table last year. The sort of bottom half of the table I want to just pick out as we sort of wrap this up and bring this to a close is VCarb. And that's what we're calling them. I'm just going to tell you right now, is VCarb. It's just a little bit easier to say, and to avoid ambiguity, that's why we're saying it that way. I think they've really kind of they seem to have really got on top of the car this year. And there's going to be inevitable questions about
borrowed parts or shared parts, from the sister team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably, I think borrowed parts is probably the best way to do it. Yeah. The best way to say that. And And obviously, there's been a lot of people, Zach Brown saying that the rules themselves do allow for the dual ownership of a team by one organisation, but maybe those rules aren't fit for purpose. But unfortunately, as things stand, they are a legal team. That's legal and that's fine, and they are operating clearly within the rules. But they seem to make a proper step, and I think it makes a welcome change from what we saw last year, which was a very, very poor year. And by comparison, we've got, honestly, it looks like we've got a V-Carb or a Red Bull B team that looks like it's actually going to be useful to ascertain the performance of drivers, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, that's what that team has always been, because it forever was the Red Bull junior team. And, the Red Bull, they can call it a sister team, whatever they like, but given sort of like the history of what that team has done, so when they called it a driver swap with Gasly and Albon, they called it a driver swap with Max and Kvyat, back in 2016. I think that was 8 years ago, by the way.
8 years ago, and it looks like he could be getting his fourth world title. So he's won a title in half of the years he's been in F1.
Yeah, which is insane. Yeah, almost, because don't forget he did 2015.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's still a pretty high percentage, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much that's a pretty good return on investment, I'd say. But it's V-Carb, I was going to call them, generally by mistake, I was going to call them AlphaTauri then. First of all, livery, absolute chef's kiss. I love that livery. It reminds me of the old Toro Rosso, sort of 2017 to 2019 livery, and I really like it, and I'm here for it.
It's good in the daylight, and it looks great under the lights.
Lights, yeah, that sort of like reflective paint, yeah, it looks really good. But yeah, they're definitely like moving in the right direction, because they had a pretty awful start to 2023, and it was only sort of the latter half of the year when they really started upgrading the car, which did coincide with Danny Rick coming back in. So I genuinely, I think if De Vries would have been in that car in the latter half of the year last year, I think he would have been all right, because the car did improve a lot, and it lifted itself off the bottom of the standings to, I think, 8th, I want to say. Because they were definitely ahead of Sauber and Haas. Well, Alfa Romeo as well last year. So it was an interesting time for them last year, and this season it looks like they've really made a step forward. They've understood the philosophy of the car a lot more. Obviously these big sort of like new aero round effects cars that we're in our third season of now. V-Carb, I think they're looking quietly confident. And if you look at the history of that team, I'm not talking about when they were Minardi, but I'm talking about sort of like when they were in their Toro Rosso, then AlphaTauri heyday. At some point, you were seeing like both cars in Q3 fairly regularly, and you're seeing fairly consistent points. I'm sure in 2016, no, I think maybe 2017 or something, they finished like 4th or 5th in the constructors, and that's a real like impressive achievement for a team that's supposedly a junior team. So,
well, wasn't it ever as well funded? But I think maybe that's. I haven't looked at their financial figures, but I imagine it's an awful lot easier to hit to their budget cap when you're backed by Red Bull.
I think that will help.
Yeah. To be fair, I would actually quite like to see them in P3 in Q3 a lot. I think that's probably going to happen more often. They do seem to have the qualifying pace, 1 lap pace, despite maybe for someone like the Sauber whacking on a C4 tyre that they won't have next week, just to do a glory run. So that's not to say too much about that. We haven't said much, but to be quite honest with you, over the 3 days of testing, they didn't do much.
Yeah.
They did quite a few laps, but you'd be hard pressed to see them. It got to the point where I was trying to ascertain whether there was mic interference on the Ferrari powered cars, and I never got to find out whether it was there on the Ferrari powered Sauber there. So yeah, looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to next week to see. I'm looking forward to next week, starting from the Thursday, to see what the pecking order is actually starting to work out as. Sort of based on that, I'm just based. It's going to be a sort of a difficult one to say, but I'm really gonna put you on the spot here, and then put myself in the same spotlight, Tom. But I'm just thinking, what's your prediction? What's your prediction for the? I'm gonna go with the race podium.
I think Max is gonna win. Chop. I think we are going to see. I think we're going to see Lando P2 and Perez P3.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
See, I don't rate Perez highly enough to put him up there, to be quite honest with you.
I had noticed.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the season that he has to fight for his seat. Straight up. He has to fight for his seat.
His contract is up at the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's on a 2-year extension in 2022.
I'm not even going to speculate on how his contract is going to play out. I'd like to see, at least a few wheels turn in anger over the next sort of 57 laps of the Grand Prix weekend. And I think, I have to agree. I think Max Verstappen is going to be top of the table come the end of it with the fastest lap point, because of course.
Oh, of course.
Well, he seems sort of built for it. It's what he wants to do, what he wants to have. I think I'm going to go for Carlos Sainz in second. I think Ferrari. We haven't talked about them very much here, but I think Ferrari seem to be clear second. Unfortunately, I'd love Leclerc, but I don't see him rounding out third. I think I'm going to have to go for. To be honest with you, I'm going to go Oscar Piastri in third.
Okay.
Do you have any bold predictions for us?
All 20 drivers are going to finish the race.
I wouldn't say that's bold, to be quite honest with you. That's fair enough, but I wouldn't say that's bold based on what I've seen.
I'm playing it safe.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a Williams, and you know what? No, because I don't think they're going to get that. Quite honestly, I know. A bold prediction. A V-carb on the podium.
Oh wow,
Ricciardo on the podium.
Oh my words!
Go down to the driver.
Imagine
starter's main to go on. To make everything sort of ruin everything. You seem sort of speechless, Tom, from that one. I'm not going to lie.
Well, yeah, that sort of like went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, it sounds like the career of Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who you can. Yeah, we're going to be hearing a lot about him this year. There's a Mercedes seat up for grabs, and I'm just wondering where could I hear, Tom? Where could I hear about the things that are going on in the Junior Formula this year?
Well, funny you should ask, my friend, and thank you for that lovely segue. You can catch anything from Formula Talk, which Sophia and I host when we're not away, that is. Her more than me, to be fair. She's a right international jet setter. And so I'm here looking after my cat who's in the background, currently fast asleep, which will probably be me this time next week watching the race. But yeah, no, you can, anything sort of F2, F3, F1 Academy. And we're covering a bit of IndyCar, all of that stuff. You can catch that on our new YouTube channel. So that's if you search for Formula Talk, you'll find us. Then anywhere you listen to Grid Talk, so Spotify, all that lovely stuff, you can find episodes of Formula Talk as well.
Excellent. And if you're one of the 72 people who aren't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you go and subscribe to the Formula Talk YouTube channel and the Grid Talk YouTube channel, and consider helping us out with a like and subscribe as well. Be sure to follow us on our social channels at Grid Talk UK to stay update with the show. That's Grid Talk UK anywhere you see the app. As we've said, Grid Talk is available on YouTube, where most episodes are recorded live, as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal and Pocket Casts. Just search Formula One Grid Talk for our back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to reactions to the races and the race results. Please consider supporting the channel on Patreon so we can get mics, lights and better recording equipment. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when each new weekly episode is released. We will be back soon with plenty more F1 content right after the first race. Thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast presented by Bet Online, and goodbye.